Yo, what is up? My name is RamS. I'm a professional rugby league coach for the team Top Blokes in RLCS, and it's been about a month since the RLCSX championships have concluded. We obviously finished third overall, which is pretty good considering. So I've had a bit of time to reflect, had a bit of time to rest because obviously the season was pretty intense. So I thought it'd be a good idea to kind of go back from the very beginning, just before RLCS started, and go all the way through and talk about the things that happened, maybe the stuff behind the scenes, maybe the stuff that happened during the gameplay that you might have seen and not known the context of. And yeah, let's just talk about it. So the first thing to talk about is picking up Archie, because we had a roster which was Flame and Cassio, obviously myself as the coach, and we had to decide on a player. So at the time there was a lot of available players, with Itachi, for example, just moving to France and being eligible for RLCS, Jorius, who had just turned 15, as well as Archie, who are both up and coming. Obviously Jorius ended up on Dignitas. There was also Scrub Killer, who actually ended up on Guild, who's obviously a fantastic player in a world championship, but there were some question marks there. But ultimately what happened was I saw Archie when we saw the Clappers play with Calix and Jorius alongside Archie, and he looked really good, and I thought it'd be a good shout to go for. It was a bit of a risk, it felt like at the time. I didn't know if he'd be RLCS ready. The way the format was in the past, you couldn't anticipate whether someone would be able to hit the ground running, and in the previous format, if they couldn't, then that was going to be detrimental. You're going to be potentially getting relegated out of RLCS, but this one was a little bit more forgiving, so it gave us a little bit more wiggle room anyway, and room for growth. So went with Archie, had a few scrims, and it just felt like it clicked fairly instantly. Could see the talent and see the ability that he had, so it was kind of a no-brainer once we'd actually seen him play and play alongside the team. So we went with him, and definitely don't regret it. So now going into the full split, so the way we actually did is we finished, second, then fourth, and then we finished top 8 twice. And also within this whole full split, we won a grid for the first time, which was great. So the very first regional, our expectation, and this is kind of the thing that we said throughout the season, was we want to get to at least top 8 in every single event, because if we get to top 8 in every single event and stay consistent, that should guarantee us a world spot. Even though Worlds was top 6, there'll be teams that rise and fall around that mark, so we wanted to stay consistent. So we went into the Swiss format and we managed to get into the top 8, which was good. The Swiss format was quite forgiving. I was quite happy with it. It was quite good for us in terms of consistency. And then when we got to the top 8, we had a solid run, and we played against Solary back when they had Yukis, Kerryan and Exotic, and we won in game 5. And then we played against Magnifico, who are now Team Queso, who just took down Guild, and we beat them at 4-2, and then we got to the finals against BDS, and this was the very first time that BDS were about to become unbeatable in grand finals, so except for champs. So yeah, we got to the top 2, and it kind of lit a fire under us. We saw Archie really have his moments against Magnifico. He looked incredible, and it was like, oh, the potential of this team is a lot higher, and we know we can really get there. So it kind of reshaped what we wanted to do as a team. Like before, we were trying to stay consistent, get to a certain level. Once we got that taste of being able to succeed and get really high, that really helped us push on. Then the next regional came, and we got top 4. We got through the Swiss bracket fairly comfortably, and then we had quite a nice matchup in the first round against Barrage, who were a bit of a lackluster team for that format. And so yeah, we came through, and then we lost in the next round, but we still managed top 4, which was good. And then the next 2 regionals, we finished top 8, or the regional 3 in the major, we finished top 8. We lost to Endpoint twice, and this was actually a time where we felt like Endpoint were a bit of our bogey team. The way they played was not very standard. It felt like they were trying to specifically counter us. I'm pretty sure Eclipse, their coach, on one of their interviews on the grid, said that they've been working on a playstyle for like 3 to 4 months to try and beat us or something like that. So it was very clearly a bogey team, and it kind of hit us in the gut. So we knew we had to like regroup and try and get better over the off season, the break in between the splits, and try and come back stronger. But ultimately, it was still a very successful full split. I'd say it was our best split consistently wise. And then we went into the winter split. Like I said, in the full split, we also had a grid win, and I think that also kind of gave us a taste of being the best at a time, if that makes sense. Whereas before, we hit second, or we'd lose to Vitality, or we'd lose to BDS, or something like that. So once we were able to win and get the grid, where we beat Oxygen, we beat Vitality on the way, we had some good matches, it kind of gave us a thing of like, oh cool, like we let's try and do this in a regional now. That's our next goal. Let's win a regional. So we go into winter, and the first regional was solid. We finished 4th. I believe it was to Giants in a Game 7 overtime or something along those lines. It was a really, really close series. Yeah, it was. I'm pretty sure the winning goal was like a ceiling pinch from Zamway that just happened to go in or something along those lines. It was a bit crazy. But yeah, so that was that regional, and it was a solid bounce back after we had a couple struggles in the top 4, in the top 8 against Endpoint, so we were able to bounce back there. And this format was double elimination, which was a little bit more precarious, so we did okay. And then the next regional was a pretty memorable one for us. We ended up winning the entire thing without losing a series. We beat BDS in the upper semi-finals, then played against Queso in the grand finals and won in Game 7 as well. They were both Game 7 matches. This was one that was special because for me as a coach, like I hadn't had an experience of completely winning a tournament before outside of the grids, and RLCS is like a huge deal. And there was just a feeling among us once we started playing BDS that was like, oh, we can beat them. Like we've been feeling pretty good in scrims against them. Even in the grids, we'd had some like solid and close results. We always feel like we played really well against BDS. Same way we feel against Vitality, but we'd lose. So we knew there was a potential, like if we're on our form and maybe they're not on their 100% day, because on their day they're still a fantastic team, like almost unplayable, then we knew that we could really, really compete against them. And it just so happened to be that's what we did. Cassio, I'd have to like highlight here, had an incredible time. He was like MVP of that entire tournament without a doubt. I don't think anyone would really dispute that. He was incredible. And as a result, we were able to come out with BDS. And after we beat BDS, there was kind of very little doubt in our minds that we shouldn't be able to win the regional. There was like all the belief, all the confidence, and when you just have that momentum behind you, you can just keep going and keep going. And we was expecting to see BDS back, but they fell to Queso, which was a bit surprising. And when Queso came up, they're also a team, when they have momentum, they're terrifying. And it ended up going to a close Game 7, I think overtime as well. But we managed to come out on top, and that feeling, I have a video on my channel if you want to check out of the comms video of the series against BDS and against Queso, and you can just hear like how ecstatic we were and how much it meant to us. So that was really, really good. Then we can go on to Regional 3, which we genuinely finished dead last. So just to put on some context, because if you just saw the stats, it'd look really confusing to go from first to last within one regional. Basically what happened in that time was the Winter Regional 2 was just before the Christmas break. So we had the Christmas break straight afterwards. We also had 2 off-season tournaments in the middle of that. So there was, and we also like weren't trying to take those too seriously. We kind of just played them. And that kind of hurt us in the long run. We took quite a long break over Christmas. When we came back, we ran into some internet issues, which caused us to miss a few scrims. So we only really had like a 1 week preparation going into it, as well as in that 1 week we played a grid tournament, which we did quite poorly. So that really affected us. That really affected us poorly. And as a result, we went into the regional and we weren't at 100% by any means. We were very poor at the time. We dropped to Wild quite early, and no, we dropped to Team Liquid quite early. So we lost the first series to Team Liquid, I believe 3-1 or 3-0, and it was really poor from us. It felt like we just weren't at sorts. Everything was kind of all over the place. Credit to them, they were decent as well, but yeah, we were very poor. And then the pressure just sort of piled on us in a double elimination style bracket where if you lose again you're out, and we played against a team who had nothing to lose and we had everything to lose, so to speak, as the holding champions of the regional. And and as a result we didn't really perform at par and we lost. There was a bit of controversy at the time, a few people saying that we fluked the regional, or that it's all a facade and we're not actually a good team. But so we had a bit of a chip on our shoulder from that point, but it was a very demoralizing situation to be a part of, and it really put a dampener on the regional win. It kind of like nullified it in a sense. It kind of cancelled each other out, and that sucks because that was such a really good feeling. Anyway, we moved on to the next regional, or the next major, sorry, and the major we ended up finishing top 8. Again, wasn't the greatest, but we managed to pull through with enough of a result that wasn't so horrible and kept us in a good spot for Worlds. And at this point, we'd won a regional and we'd finished pretty much top 8 every single regional except for the regional 3. So we were comfortably in 3rd place in terms of RLCSX points, and we looked completely on set to qualify for Worlds, which was ultimately the end goal for us as a team, because we knew once we get to LAN, that's when we can really start looking upwards. And we also wanted to win a regional in the middle of that and then try and push to win a major and blah 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 blah. But ultimately the Worlds was like the good benchmark for us, so we went for that. Then we went into Spring Regional, and we were in the process of recovering still from that Regional 3 and the poor-ish major, so we was like really focusing on trying to get back to a decent level, and we felt pretty good, and then we were fairly unlucky with the seeding or the matchmaking, whatever you want to call it, and we played against Vitality, who, Vitality had the better of us the entire of the season. They've been incredible, and they only got better as time went on, especially when they started boot camping. But as a result, we dropped down and we played against White Demons, who were a brand new team and kind of came a little bit out of nowhere. It was Tigri, Dorito, and CRR. And CRR, as one player in particular I'd like to highlight on that team, is like really, really, really good. And yeah, the way they play with such confidence and aggression that if you're not feeling 100%, it's really, really going to catch you out. So we ended up falling to White Demons. It was a close-ish series, but we should have done a lot better. They really capitalized on us, and as a result, we only finished in the top 12 in that regional, and that kind of it was the second time we dropped out of the top 8 in the whole RLCSX. So that really put like a dampener on us, and we really, really needed to like pull our finger out and really start grinding again, try and getting back up to the level we knew we were meant to be. So the morale around the team, it was a little bit off. Not in like a toxic way, but everyone was kind of frustrated at themselves and how the team was performing, so everyone kind of pulled it out and was like, okay, cool, no, we're not doing this again, let's actually like grind. So then we go into Regional 2 of Spring, and we ultimately kind of scraped through the group stage situation. So we finished 3rd in our group. We lost to White Demons and BDS again, so the two teams that we lost to, we lost again. And as a result, we went in and we played against... Okay. We played against Wild, who were the team that knocked us out in the Regional 3. And we 3-0'd them quite comfortably. And then we played against Dignitas, who had been like kind of resurging. And we beat them 3-1 to qualify for the top 8, which was pretty good. Except the team that stood in our way was Team BDS. Now, we knew that we can beat BDS. I think we play the best against BDS than we do against pretty much anyone in RLCS. Like, that is just a team that we play against, and we really find our footing instantly, and we know exactly what to expect. We have a lot of respect for each other, and we scrimmed each other so much over the course of the season that it just felt like a really comfortable game. Even with the pressure on, we knew we would be underdogs, so you can go in with little pressure, they'd have the pressure on us, and we know that we can cause an upset. And what happened was, it's exactly what I said. We went into them and we took a 3-0 lead pretty early on in the series, as early as it can be, so 3-0. And at that point, the pressure was on them, and there was not a moment where we like thought we were going to lose it. They brought a game back at game 4, and then we won 4-1 in game 5. So like, it was like really, really solid. It was one of the biggest defeats that BDS had until later on in the season. So it was really, really, really encouraging for us. And then ultimately, we lost to Team Queso, who this was the regional that they ended up winning. So I guess, some things are meant to happen in that way. But Team Queso are a team we should have played a lot better against, but they were very, very good. And when a team like that, like I said earlier, has momentum in their way, they're kind of unplayable in their day sometimes. So we lose to Team Queso, they go on to beat Solary, and then we are fairly happy with our results. So we go on to the next regional, which is the final regional of the spring split, final regional of the season. And we finished top 12 again. So this one was pretty messy. So essentially, this is what happened behind the scenes. And this isn't necessarily a dig or anything, but I'm just going to talk about what happened on our side of things. We knew that we were comfortably in 3rd place for Worlds, and we knew we just needed to stay consistent because we wanted to try and qualify for Worlds. The idea of playing on LAN was like, this is what we were aiming for. I mentioned it multiple times already in this video. We were pushing and we were pushing. We just wanted to get there and make LAN. And an hour before the regional, just before we an hour and 15 minutes before, so just before we started our warm-up scrim, so before every RLCS event, we generally scrim a team for about an hour just to make sure we're warm and ready to go and just go straight into it so we don't start cold. About 15 minutes before, Psyonix had put out a tweet stating, hey, land's cancelled, there's no Worlds, we're just going to be doing the European Championships or whatever instead. And as you can imagine, when there's something that you've been like working towards and it was your ultimate goal throughout the season, it can really kind of like hit you like a punch in the stomach almost, and it really pushed us back. And you can see just from the results that happened in this regional, it was a complete mess. But yeah, so we went in and the group stage was pretty sloppy from us. We lost series again that we probably should have done a lot better in, but ultimately we were able to get out of the regional. So yeah, we finished 1-3 and we ended up qualifying because we had one extra game differential compared to Endpoint, and by knocking out Endpoint we knocked them out of the title for Worlds. But we had a group of Vitality, Galaxy Racer and Liquid and Endpoint, like I said, and we just about scraped through. Our only series win was against Galaxy Racer, I believe. No, it was against Endpoint. And so that kind of... No, it wasn't. It was against Galaxy Racer in a 3-0 after losing to Endpoint in Game 5. But we make it through, and then we have Vodafone Giants first round, and Vodafone Giants had started to slip as well in that time, and so they were the exact situation as us, except they had poorer results, so they needed to win the series against us to try and stay in contention for Worlds, and if we beat them, they pretty much got knocked out of Worlds, and if they beat us, then there's a solid chance that we got knocked out of Worlds spot. We ended up winning that series 3-1 to play against Wolves, and in Wolves, this is the single most painful loss that I've witnessed, both as a spectator and as a coach for my team. We were on set to have a perfect sweep against them without conceding a single goal, and on 0 seconds in Game 3 we concede to equalise to send it to overtime, and then we lose that overtime, and then we lose Game 4, and then we lose Game 5 to get reverse sweeped after almost perfect sweeping. I think that was a point in our season where we really can look back on and just think, how did we do that? How did we let that happen? And kind of me holding my hands up and be like, we shouldn't be able to be at the expense of that. That shouldn't happen to us. We shouldn't be able to do it. We should be resilient enough to not get beaten by them. Granted, to Wolves, they obviously played well. They brought it back. And the next day, they almost swept Guild, but they ended up getting reverse swept themselves in a best of 7. But ultimately, we should have done a lot better. And then if we went into that top 8 against Guild, I think we would have been in a really good spot considering how poorly they started. So that kind of concluded us there. And the only way we get knocked out of the major and potentially Worlds was if Atlantide Wave won with Aether coming second or something along those lines. So we were in a pretty good spot. We did require a couple of results to make sure we qualify for Worlds, but ultimately Atlantide Wave lost in the first round to Team BDS and we got our World spot, so we could kind of take a sigh of relief and think, okay, we did it. We clutched up, but it was a very, very shaky end towards the season. This was obviously the regional that Guild won, and they were all of a sudden the 4th best team in the world. Anyway, so then we go into the major. So yeah, for the spring major, we got out of groups again, going 2-2, a 3-way tie with SK and Guild, but we finished the 4th seed, which put us in a first round matchup against Team BDS. This time, however, BDS wanted to be more on job. It was a major. They were going for the 3 majors, 3 wins, and they beat us 4-2. It was relatively close, but ultimately we didn't play fully up to par. They did. And so we finished out on top 8. BDS obviously got on to win this. So now the final thing that we went on to was the champs. So our preparation for champs was a bit shaky. So basically throughout the spring split, which is something I didn't really mention, we dealt with an injury with Archie. He had some hand issues that caused quite a lot of pain for him, which meant that we couldn't scrim as much as we wanted to, as well as, for example, if you look back in the grid, I literally played for I think 6 or 7 of the series out of the available series, because Archie ultimately needed rest, and the grid only meant we could get major qualification, which didn't contribute to Worlds, so we figured that was a good risk to take by just focusing on the regionals as opposed to the grid. So we did that, and so as a result, you can imagine we came off a poor end to the winter split. We wanted to work hard, but ultimately got hit with like I said, the injury, which probably killed some potential momentum we could be building with the team by getting in some like really earned and needed practice. But ultimately, we should have been able to compete at a high enough level to not fall into the spot we did, regardless of the level of practice. It was, down to individual practice and down to being able to pull yourself out and hold yourself high, So that's one of the things that kind of affected us there. Anyway, so going into champs, we knew we had a month break. So there was a month break in the spring from the last region onto the major, and then there was a month break from the last major until the championship. So we actually were able to take a bit time off and then come back and practice, and then take time off and then come back and practice, which is pretty good for us, which meant that we could be super focused for champs. And we ended up kind of showing up a lot better than we thought we would. So we played against Guild, and like I said, Guild were the team to beat at the time. We've seen the quotes. I think I made a video on it where Nolly, went on First Touch, for example, talking about Guild, and we'd heard everyone kind of put us down. We predicted the 6th team in the event, even though we physically could only finish at worst 5th or 4th or 5th, whatever. But yeah, so we went in, we played against Guild first in the best of set series, and we felt comfortable from the get-go. Guild have never been a team we've been too afraid of. We've lost to them throughout the season, but honestly, Guild was like another one of those teams we just felt comfortable against. So when it came to playing them in champs, it was almost like the most perfect first round we could have, and we ended up only dropping 1 game out of the available 6 that we could have, or 9, I don't know. But yeah, we won 3-0, no, 3-1 and then 3-0, quite comfortable. Didn't really bother us too much, and yeah, we managed to finish into the top 4. Then we played against Vitality, and well, the rest of the story is Vitality won the championships because they were on boot camp and they beat BDS and they beat us quite comfortably. So they did everything they needed to do, but ultimately they were too hard of a match for us, and so that leaves us to where we are now, which is we finished 3rd, which I'm pretty happy about. Like, if I was to give a conclusion, we had a good season overall by the ranking and by our final placement, but throughout the season there were situations which we wish we could have done better and dealt with better, and ultimately that's where we are at right now. And if you haven't followed, or you don't know, obviously follow through Twitter or anything, we've actually made a roster move. Flame is no longer on the team, so it's Archie Cassio, and we're currently deciding on our new player, and that's ultimately because we don't want to just be the 3rd best team or the top 4 team. We want to be competing up there with BDS and Vitality, and I think it'd be silly to be comfortable. I think that's a thing. We need to take risks, we need to try and improve, and we need to try and really get up there, because we know we have the ability to, and that's, I think, ultimately what we want to do. We want to win, ultimately. So that's where we're at right now, and that's kind of the full circle of the video. It was a bit rambly, but I hope it was helpful. I figured it'd be a useful thing for us to do, to kind of just talk about how the season went, where we are, and kind of give a little bit insight into how I felt about certain events, kind of talk about the progression of everything. But ultimately, I'm super proud of the season, I'm super proud of what we did, and I can't wait to get back to work for the next season. It's going to be super good. I can't wait, whenever it is. So yeah, anyway, if you like that type of video, let me know. I'm planning on doing a few other types of content. Obviously, check out my other series, which is a Coach Road to SSL, which I kind of do a bit more analytical kind of stuff, where you can maybe pick up some advice to take into your ranked games. If you want to follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/rams_rl. Same with Twitch, rams_rl. TikTok, rams_rl. You get the idea. But yeah, thanks for checking out, and peace.